love to do, and ultimately to find your path, which is our topic for tonight. And we're going to kind of approach the topic in an unexpected way with story. Our speaker for tonight, a good friend of mine, Schwab, is a mythologist. And I remember when I first learned that, I thought, wow, that's really cool. I've never met a mythologist before. And then I had a couple of questions go through my head, which maybe in your head as well. How does one become a mythologist? And what does a mythologist do? I know they study stories, but what do they then do with those stories? So for the first question, Rich is going to address that a little bit, because his personal journey to find his path in mythology is pretty amazing. And the second question, I'll just share this. The first time that I heard him speak, he was sharing a tale that was a transformation story. And it was so moving that it actually brought him to tears in the telling of it. And then, of course, it brought the entire audience to tears. And he explained afterwards that he was using that story to, in working with a young boy who was mentoring, to help him work through the grief of his father's death. And I realized then that the role of a mythologist has a really important, it's very much needed in our society. And it's not just purposeful, but it's practical. I was surprised by that, because he takes these stories that are fantastic in nature, but he uses them to help people work through the raw realities of their life and to answer questions, to get real answers to their questions, such as, where should I go? What's my path? This career or that career? Should I move there or not? So I'm just really thankful that he's here tonight. He's come out a long way. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say about finding our path. So let's give him a warm welcome.
Thank you, Kate. So yeah, the dilemma, of course, of being a mythologist, and of course in today's day and age, it's, you want to cause consultant after everything, right? So mythological consulting is my own amusing take on it. I think it's fun. But anyways, because you always get that question, does that mean you're actually like a real consultant, or are you like a fantasy consultant? But basically the idea is that myth is a story that was believed. The word belief comes from the word beloved, originally, if you trace it back through the ages. And what I focus on is not necessarily the old stories that were believed, as much as what are the stories we're having right now that we're believing. One of the other connotations of the myth is it's a lie. It's not real. It's not true. So for example, earlier today, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I have to give a talk today to a bunch of people, I don't know, that I inspire them about their life journeys, which I don't know what their life journeys are. I could sit there and I could expound and lecture and say all these wonderful things, but that doesn't mean I really know any of these people. I don't know anything about that. And that's right there in that morning while you're eating your cereal, you start to feel like, oh my God, public speaking. That's number one fear, right, in America right now. And right there, the thing that's crucial is this ancient part of my brain wakes up, and it's almost like having to fight against a dragon. It's almost like, how am I going to do that? How am I going to work with educating these people? How am I going to give anything to them that's of value if I have absolutely no idea who they are? I have absolutely no idea what each one of their personal journeys is. And of course, I can fall back into that, oh my God, I'm going to be eaten up by this dragon. But I can also realize that my brain is trying to tell these stories. Do I want to believe in that or not? Here I hope is going to eat me. So, for the most part, the element there that's crucial is to pay attention not only to the stories we're telling ourselves that are hindering us, but what are the stories we could be telling ourselves to move ourselves forward? What are the stories we're working through in ourselves? I'll give you an example of a story that every single one in this room has had to deal with. The word educate that I just mentioned. The word education has a story behind it. Now, most of you think education means I'm going to come in this room, the guy in front is going to tell me something, and I'm going to take it and pack it in, and then I'll learn something, right? That's what education means, right? Nope, not at all. The word education, originally Latin, ed ducere. Ducere means to guide or to lead, and ed means out. That's a completely different moment. Rather than me taking something and packing it in for you guys, I have to pull something out, right? And so I need to start asking for each one of you, because you all know your stories really well. And if you want to listen while I'm just going through some of the steps of things I've seen doing mentoring with youth, things I've done mentoring with other people, but specifically looking at for the stories that we're experiencing, looking for the stories that are helping us, the ones that are getting in the way. How do I change and unlearn a story? How do I work with it? How do I live through the story so that the story doesn't live through me? Things like that. What I'm asking right now is for the deep part of yourself to start to play with these ideas, to start to guide me to. Because ultimately, what we'll do, since we've got a really nice sized crowd here, is I'll talk a bit, but I'm also going to ask questions. Because, you know, I want to hear myself talking. It's, you know, not sort of that thing. And there's a wonderful moment there, because now you guys can, you know, if you want to consciously or unconsciously start to churn and start thinking about the life journey that has brought you here. The life journey you've been telling yourself that you would have been on, and how the difference is there. You know, I like to do it this way, because it works in a really interesting way for people. Is, you know, if you were to think of some of the theme music in your life, right? Say you were to sit down and see your life story as a film, as a journey, you know, years in the future now. What would be the theme music at what points in your life? People frequently really kind of respond to that idea, especially people who are musically inclined, people who feel connected to that. You know, some people just want to kind of visualize it. You know, I remember when I was probably about the age of some of the younger people here, I started questioning this idea of what do I want to see when I'm an old man for my memories? What are some of the crazy things that I want to show that old guy when he's thinking about this stuff? And that actually caused me to, as Katie said, lead a fairly peculiar life for a while. I tend to still do it, but so anyways, to get started on this, now that you're all kind of thinking about your life, you're thinking about these moments in life, where do they fit into a story? How do you fit that into a story? It's a wonderful question. And for me, the thing that I found worked kind of well is something called the hero's journey. That helped a lot. It was something that they utilized. It was written around the time of the 40s. And, you know, it was a book by a guy named Joseph Campbell who wrote that, called The Hero with a Thousand Faces. Some young kid read it at some point since then, and he thought it might make an interesting movie, so he made a movie. It did all right. It was called Star Wars. And the problem, though, is that every time since then, a lot of people have tried to use this for you know, Hollywood especially. So right now, you all actually have a lot of a good idea of what I'm about to talk about, even though I haven't really got there yet, because so many people here in this room have seen so many stories, and the people making these stories are very aware of how stories can convey an idea. So with that said, I'm going to just show you guys what I do, right? So let's do a quick story. So a long, long time ago, last Thursday, there was in some versions of the story, there was, you know, kind of like a place that wasn't working out so well. Sometimes it's a wasteland, sometimes it's just kind of like, I don't want to be here, you know, land like that. And in some versions of the story, in that spot were 3 brothers, and sometimes it was 3 sisters. Sometimes, you know, it was 3 animals, it could be something else. And you guys can change that. Any part of the story you want, that's what we want, by the way. Now, at one point in time, these 3 looked across a river, and they saw on the other side that there was a place that they wanted to be. They saw something that looked a lot better, like a kind of paradise place, a place where it was tremendous. And so they realized that if there's a river, that there has to be a bridge there. And there has to be a way that they can cross this bridge and get over to this more amazing place. The place that can kind of fulfill their needs, you know, usually called paradise. Sometimes you have stories of the Holy Grail. In Finland, it's called the Sampo. There's all kinds of things like that. But anyways, the idea is you're going to a place that's meeting your needs, meeting what you are, feeding you in a different way. So these 3 decide to go across it. And the youngest brother goes across first, which is actually kind of unusual because usually the lowest goes first. And he gets halfway across the bridge and then the troll pops out and says, like, hey, I'm going to eat you. Right? And then the youngest brother is like, no, you probably shouldn't do that because, you know, I've got bigger brothers, they're bigger, they're going to be a much better meal, you know. If they don't see me over there, they're not going to cross. Just saying. If I go over there, then they will, and they'll follow. So, of course, and it's go by. Tricky little guy. And then some of you might start to know what this story is, you know, because we've all heard this one. I'm just cloaking it. Anyways, the second brother, same sort of thing. Hey, if I get over there, the big brother, he's even bigger sort of thing. And of course, the third largest one goes, and he's a goat, by the way. So this is really good scruff. I like disguising things. But anyway, so he knocks the troll off and then gets over to the side. That's a story we probably all heard maybe about age 5, right? Probably didn't think too much about it. But if I were to take, as I just did, and erase a lot of the words from it, I could talk about it a different way. In psychology, frequently we have a place where we are in an initial state, and sometimes that place works for us, and sometimes there's things lacking. Sometimes needing to move ourselves further, we're trying to find a better place for us. And if you can actually go over to this place, and you can really visualize where it is, that place you want to be in your life, that kind of goal, that place where you want to see. The assumption is that there is a bridge, there are the resources to get there. The resources might be people. They might be some sort of schooling. They might be some sort of opportunities. You know. And they're out there. Frequently you don't know where they are. You have to find them. However, there's also interferences with those, and that's what that troll is. Okay. So this is one of the stories that I found particularly useful with talking with people about. And the reason why I use story is because Billy Goat's Gruff is a very memorable story. It's very easy to remember. If I just started lecturing on and on about initial states, final states, resources, and interferences, you guys might remember that by the time you get home. And the question is, are you going to apply it tomorrow? Are you going to start thinking about, well, how do I visualize kind of where I want to go? How do I visualize where I want to be? Who I want to be? You know, have I figured out what my gifts are? Have I figured out what my needs are? And these are the interesting questions that come up when you look at story a little bit too much. Because what happens in stories is frequently there's a character that's a hero. And they start off and they are in a place that doesn't work for them. And they have to go into a place that might be treacherous. There might be some sort of ordeal. There might be lots of trials, ordeals. And the idea is that they go in and they obtain something of value that they don't always just have for themselves. They bring it back and they help for their village too. And this is also a metaphor for how human beings, which is why these stories pop up all around the world, it's how human beings transform. It's how we change in our lives. Frequently, we get some sort of nudging, like, hey, you know what? There's something not working here, but maybe we should try something else. Sometimes that call to adventure can happen from outside. It can be someone else saying, hey, I really think, and a good friend of mine, I really think you should kind of move in this direction. Sometimes it can come from inside. You know, in the stories of Harry Potter, he has an internal call to adventure. He's saying, I want to do this. Luke Skywalker, he has someone else. He's got an old man who's like, hey, you should do this. Okay. And this is something that's interesting because it happens all the time in our lives. And you know what happens the second someone gives us a call to adventure, or we do? There's next stage is the refusal. No, not going to do it. You know, and that's part of the hero's journey as well. So what happens is you have this moment where you're hesitant because you don't know that. You don't know that place. You don't want to be uncomfortable. You don't want to go off on this kind of large journey. But the thing is, if you're not willing to go on a journey, how can you find your path? You see how these two things are so closely linked, right? And the element is that frequently journeys are difficult because they have to be meaningful. Things that are easy, you never tell stories about people sitting around sipping tea, go to the movies, oh my God, look at that guy, he drank tea for 2 hours. That was an awesome movie. I loved that movie. That was tremendous, right? We never see it. The other thing we also don't see is we never see it where, you know, or maybe you have had this problem, I have this problem, it doesn't really bother me, but we want to know the bridge to the other place. We want to know how to get there. We want to get there right now. We don't want to have to go on this long journey to do it. We don't appreciate that, right? We just, man, I wish tomorrow I could just do what I want to do. Even if you don't know what that is, you know, a lot of times we do like that. And then, but that's kind of almost the same thing as if you're sitting down and you're like, hey, Imagine, so let's do it this way. Imagine one of your favorite films, your favorite stories. First time you ever are experiencing it, first time you're ever reading it or seeing it, right? Imagine yourself sitting down where you were, ready to watch. You don't even know this is about to become one of the most meaningful stories to you in your entire life. And imagine me running in and being like, hey, you want to get in? That's exactly the same thing. So the point is this. If you look at it more along the lines of the value of the destination is in the ordeals to getting to the journey. It's not something that's quick. If it's quick and easy, it frequently doesn't have meaning. And that's one of the things that's interesting about mythology, is frequently the heroes in mythology, they don't have a good time. They have a very difficult time. They have a lot of ordeals, they have a lot of wounds, right? One of the things that's interesting in this day and age is we keep having superhero movies, right? And the superhero movies now are looking more and more into why this person's wounded. What are their wounds? What are their scars? Okay. And the thing that's interesting about this, you look at the amount of Batman movies that have been out in the last 20, 30 years versus the amount of Superman movies. Batman, for the most part, is an more interesting character. You know why? Because he's crazy. He's literally crazy. He is so wounded that he decides he's going to dress up like a bat and run around and beat up people. Right? But yet we kind of identify with that more than someone who's just like, hey, I'm going to fly around and do this. And the thing that's difficult with this is that we don't frequently want to look at our wounds. We don't want to look at the stories of our wounds. We don't want to try to get into that place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about another model that we utilize in this. Because the hero's journey is interesting and it's worthwhile. I think if you guys are really interested in reading some of that stuff and want, I can go through some of those stages in it. But there's a lot of other work that's happened since that book was published in the 40s. There's a lot of people who have started saying, well, what is the story of my life? Where am I at right now in that story? And the thing that's important too in studying stories is frequently stories have other stories inside of them. So even if you're like, well, I shouldn't be at the cult of adventure because I'm, in my 30s or I'm in my 40s or I'm in my 70s. I'm not going to get those. It's the beginning of a story. I'm towards the end of the story. Well, yes, but stories are fractal. They kind of move in circles like this. So you can be in a sub-story of a larger story. And sometimes finding that sub-story works really well in finding the placement of the larger story. But the thing is, it takes a long time to kind of work with that, to guide that. Now on that note, there's another book, and that book's called The Hero Within, by a woman named Carol S. Pearson. And Carol Pearson outlines 6 or 7 different stages that we go through in our own personal journey. She says from age 0 until maybe about 10 or so, we're basically innocent. We're kind of like the child. We're the very kind of, we don't know what the world is. We don't know about the horrors of it. We don't know about the scary things in it. For the most part, we're just having fun, Like, we can go play, and we're like, have some food, and good to go. Every once in a while, I'm going to throw a temper tantrum, but you know what? Then I'm happy 10 minutes later, 5 minutes later, right? So, for the most part, it's not too bad. Then her next stage, she says, is that in the age from there, around the time that you kind of become aware of the depths of the horrors of the world, we're in a stage called the orphan. And the orphan stage is basically your teenage years, It's where you start to get really horrified with what is happening in the world. You start to realize that school is not fun, and the kids at school are scared, and they are mean sometimes, and maybe I don't even want to do this work. I don't know what I want to do. I want to do something else, right? And the thing that's problematic about this is that there's a way to work out of this. But you notice in stories, frequently it starts with an orphan. It starts with someone who is disconnected from their parents. They're disconnected from their roots. Okay? And that's not a literal thing. I'm not saying that, in order for me to be in the orphan stage, I have to have lost my parents. I'm saying that it's kind of a symbol. It's a symbol for being, I'm kind of on my own right now. I feel like I'm on my own. I feel like I'm kind of cut off from something, from my connection. And the cure that she proposes is the next stage. She says the key to being an orphan is wandering. The next stage that the hero frequently goes off is they go on a journey. They go off and they wander. Okay? And you can do this in lots of different ways. You can wander in the, go and travel around the world. You can go wander, drive across the country. You can go wander and have adventures in the wilderness. You can have adventures traveling around looking for different careers, different jobs. Some people, their wandering stage is kind of in that 5 minutes where they're checking off what their major is for college. Right? That's what our society looks at wandering as. But the thing that's tricky and the thing that's difficult with that is, and I'm telling this especially to the young people in the room, I don't know who thought that up, but the idea that one month I had to, or you guys have to get a piece of paper to go to the bathroom, and the next month, hey, check this box and let me know what you're going to do the rest of your life, I don't think that's a good system, personally. But the point is not that people in our society don't wander, it's that our society doesn't really encourage us to. It doesn't really want us to do that. It's kind of saying, you know what, you should kind of go to college and get a job and get married and do that sort of thing. And I think we've all kind of felt that. But the thing that's important with that, that's the village. That's the place that the hero has to leave behind. And frequently in the journey, you have a certain consciousness that you have to leave behind to move to the next space. You have to let go of something. And it's not just the ideas that your parents give you. It's the ideas that you have too. This is what I was talking about, the mythology that I have in my head when I think, oh my God, I have to do public speaking today. Oh, what's that dragon? My brain starts telling me a story like there's a tiger that's jumping out of the bush and going to get me. But the point is, it's a story. There's things that we tell frequently, stories to ourselves. Thoughts. Stories. I'm not going off into an adventure that's going to really kill me if I'm traveling around. I'm not doing that. I've had lots of opportunities to travel around. When I was, 19, I decided I want to drive across the country. Everyone told me I was going to get stabbed on the highway. Everybody said, you're going to get stabbed on the highway, you're going to get shot. This is a scary country. You don't do that. And I had so much fun doing it. And I had lots of crazy adventures, right? And I went and I couch surfed with people that I hardly knew.